This week in the field, a very purpose-driven shoot. Hey everyone, I'm Scott Davenport and welcome to In the Field. Thank you for joining me today. So today's topic, it's almost the polar opposite of the video I shared last week on In the Field. Last week I talked about working the scene, moving around, finding different compositions. And as fate would have it, this week's shoot is the polar opposite of that. I knew exactly what I was going to do and just went out and did it. It was a very purpose-driven outing. And let me just jump straight to the footage and I'll come back and talk a little bit more about this. So I'm sitting here in La Jolla and it's kind of funny to me because not 2 hours ago I was recording something in the studio about working a scene, going around, finding different compositions. Yet here I sit and I know exactly where I'm going to go. I know exactly what I want and exactly what I'm going to do. It's going to be a very short, tight shoot. I suppose part of that is because I'm very familiar with the area. And also part of it is it's a gray day. Right? There's not a lot going on in the sky at all. It's going to be perfect for my black and white project. So I'm going to find my favorite set of rocks, set up on them, nice long exposure. I don't have to wait around for light to do anything. I don't have to wait around for the sun to get low. I'm just going to go out, get the frames that I'm after, and pack it up and be done. I've got my spot, did a little bit of walking around. I always like to do extra scouting for a future outing. And I've got my spot. The tide is nice and low, so some of these rocks are normally not visible. So I'm framing up on these. Just got to fine tune the framing. And settings will be really standard. F16, I want the depth. I might dial that back to F11 because the background can be soft. And then I'm going to throw a 10-stop filter on once I've got my framing set up. I want the water, everything else just to be smooth, and it's all about rocks. Again, I'm thinking in black and white for this scene. There's not a bunch of color here. There's not going to be a bunch of color. Matter of fact, I caught a break actually. The sun just dipped behind another set of clouds here, so it's even taking some of the harshness out of the scene. I'll get the settings dialed in, the filters put on, fire off a few frames, and this will be a wrap. I've got the camera firing off a 4-minute exposure right now, so everything will get nice and smooth. This is primarily my subject, this set of rocks, this little channel between them. Just all the different curves. Yeah, the angle on this is kind of nice, and of course with the wider angle on the actual camera as opposed to my little video thing here, I'm also picking up, all of this stuff in the background. Nice sweeps of sky. There'll be some nice lines that'll get formed as those clouds drift around a little bit. And there's a couple of little hints of glow, as the sun's cutting through just spots of those clouds. Those little bright spots out in the ocean, kind of at each third of the frame here as I have things in the camera. So just waiting for the camera to do its thing, and then I'll tweak the composition. Maybe a little tiny bit this way, a little tiny bit that way. Not too many changes. That was nice. It was nice not to feel rushed in any way, shape, or form. Going to a familiar place. And the weather cooperated with my mood today. I realized I have not been out with the camera. This is like 10, 11 days since I'd been out for a shoot, which is a long time for me. And yeah, now I got to pack up early to stow the gear. It's still relatively daylight out. I even had time to put on dry shoes, which always feels nice after an ocean shoot, and it's another guilty pleasure, I suppose. So this notion of a very purpose-driven photo shoot, I think this works for landscapes that you are visiting often. If you're going to a location frequently, you know the location, you know what it has to offer, the weather is whatever it is on that day. You take a few photos and you're done. You're wrapped up. And I took 3 photos total the entire time I was there. And that's all I needed. And honestly, if I look at it, there's really one I'm going to throw away. So I got 2 shots. On the plus side, my keeper rate was really good for this outing. That's unusual to keep 60+% of my photos. But I guess why it's so interesting to me that this particular outing happened right after talking about the polar opposite of really working a scene, moving around and so forth. It just shows the spectrum of photography, and I think it's true for any genre. Some shoots are going to be very straightforward. You go in, you get your shots, and you're done. And others are much more exploratory. And it's nice to have a mix of them, quite honestly. It was I mentioned this while I was on the scene there. It was nice not to feel like I was rushed or scrambling or trying to find that particular composition. Just being able to go to that, that familiar place, set up, get the shot, go home. That was really great. There's different joys for both of them. Another thing that I think lends itself to a very purpose-driven outing is having a project. Knowing that you're targeting a particular photo that's going to fit into a larger body of work. For me, it's my ongoing black and white work, and I think I'm really starting to settle in on a particular style of photo that I'm after, and so that means I will need to revisit a couple of places, but I'll be able to do it with a very targeted, very focused photo shoot. That will do it for this week's In the Field. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you did, please let me know somehow. Comments on the video below. Shares are always appreciated. Likes are great. Anything that gives me an indication you got some value out of this, that helps encourage me come and sit down and do another video. And if you got questions about photography, I'd love to hear from you. You can send them to me through my website. You can leave them in the comments below, and I usually turn an answer around in a day or two. And could use your question to help fuel ideas for future videos, so please do send them in. Until next time, my name is Scott Davenport, and happy shooting.